Hello everyone, my name is Amit Dubey. I'm a coach, soft skills and behavioral trainer, speaker and lecturer. Today in this very special video, we're going to learn about something that actually helps human beings run, actually helps society run, it actually helps businesses run. And what is that one thing which is common for all, for humans, for society and for businesses? Yes, we're going to learn the very important aspect that we actually deal with every single day, and that very special topic for today is communication, and we're going to learn business communication specifically. Alright, so are you ready? Let's begin. So in this very session, what are we going to learn? We're going to learn how communication process works and introduction to it, and we're going to learn active listening skills, body language, assertive communication, giving and receiving feedback, by the way, which is a very important tool in communication. Alright, so let's not waste time any further and let's get started. Number one is introduction to communication process. How does it go? What happens really? What is the definition of communication? So let me tell you the definition right away. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place to another. I will repeat that for you. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place to another. But there's one more thing to it. What's that? Now, the transmission of message from a sender to receiver, okay, has to be in an understandable manner. I'll repeat that again. Has to be in an understandable manner. Why? Because if that doesn't happen, then what's going to happen is there will be a communication barrier. And the impact that you're trying to get, or let's say the usefulness of the communication that you want, will die. Alright, so now let us understand the elements of communication. What are these elements that are involved in the process of communication? Number one is communicators. Now, communicators, self-explanatory, communicators are the ones who actually communicate. And the reason they communicate is because they have a message, right? The communication process starts because there is something in your mind that you want to share. And that thing that you want to share is called a message. Right? And then there's a channel. What's a channel? So what medium do I use to communicate? What medium do I use to share the message that I want to share with you? Now, it could be a telephone, it could be computer, internet, it could be this video camera, anything, right? So that's the channel that you use to communicate, to put your message across. Okay? And then we have something called feedback. Now, if you're listening to me and you are nodding, or you're saying no, or if your head is a little tilted, now these or you could tell me yes, I understood or I did not. These verbal and non-verbal aspects that you show, okay, when I tell you something and you tell me that you've understood or you haven't understood something, now that is called feedback. Feedback can be verbal and non-verbal, both. And noise. Now that's like the villain in the communication process. So if you're trying to convey a message, if you're trying to initiate a communication process, and if somehow the message gets distorted and somehow your message doesn't reach the right audience, then in that case there's a failure, and the reason for failure is a noise. Now, noise can be anything. It's not just like a loud sound. There's more to it. Anything. Your filters in your mind, if you don't like a person and you don't want to listen to that person, or you might think that the person will always lie. So that is why you have a filter in your mind that this person always lies, so I'm not going to listen to that person. That again is a noise, because that is obstructing the flow of communication. So noise is like the villain, and we need to get rid of it so that we can avoid barriers in communication. Now, communication it can be one-way process. So like if somebody is speaking on a radio, if I'm speaking to you on a radio, assuming, then in that case it's just a one-way process. Now the only problem with one-way process is that the feedback is missing. If I'm communicating to you through a video, what's going to happen? Or through, let's say, no, if I'm communicating to you through radio, let's say, now you can obviously hear me, but then I will not know if you liked what I'm saying or if you've understood something. Then in that case, feedback is missing. You can't tell me that you haven't understood something, or if you want me to repeat something, you can't tell me. So there the feedback is missing. That's why one-way process is has more of a disadvantage than advantage, but it's obviously has its own advantages as well. In large gatherings, very large gatherings, there can't be two-way communication, not possible always. Next is communication can be a two-way process. Now, two-way process is you communicating with your bosses, your subordinates, your colleagues, where there is an interaction happening. Message. Now, message not only means the speech used or the information conveyed. Message is more than that. Message doesn't have to be verbal always. There is more to it. Yes, there are non-verbal message exchanges as well, which comprise of your facial expressions, the tone of your voice, gestures, and your body language. Alright, so what really non-verbal communication is? It is actually what you don't say much counts a lot. I'll say that again. Words can fail us. You may not be able to catch a person if he or she is lying. You can't catch them with their words, but you can definitely catch them with the body language. That's why it is always said that you need to learn to read in order to influence people. Okay, so learn the non-verbal communication very well, which is absolutely important, which is something that we're going to learn as well. Now, non-verbal communication, what does it comprise of? There is posture, wherein when you stand, like I said, like I always say, always use everything that you've got. Stand straight. You will look at all the successful people, all of them, they exhibit confidence. How? Because they stand straight, they walk straight. Now that is absolutely important to convey the fact that you're confident. Distance. Now, what is distance doing here in non-verbal, you might wonder. But yes, let me tell you, distance talks a lot about you. Don't scratch your head. I'll tell you what it means. Have you ever noticed that when a stranger comes and speaks to you, and if he or she comes very close, you get uncomfortable and you move back? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, next example. Your loved ones, your family members, they come and stand to you very close, but then you don't get uncomfortable, right? So why this uncomfortable? So why this uncomfort? Now that's because distance actually also plays a major role. Looking at the distance between two people far and wide, we can actually tell. We can actually tell what kind of relationship that people share. Okay, so you have a personal area where your loved ones can come in. It could be anything within 2 feet, like this much, and you can, your parents, your relatives, your spouse, your siblings, anybody. Now let's think of something else. Now let's take it to another level. Let's assume now let's take it to another level. Let's go back to your school days. Now, when you were in school days and when you did some mischief and you did some mischievous thing, and then you were called at principal's office. Now, do you realize that principal used to sit that side? There was a huge table, and this is where you would stand. Why so much of distance between the principal's seat and your seat? That's because that distance signifies power. That's why distance also plays a very important role. If there's a lot of distance, obviously at workplace between two people, we'll understand that it's a formal relationship. The distance is less, it will show informal relationship. Number 3 is head movement. Obviously, the way you move your head, yes, no, nod. If I'm speaking to you and if you look there, now that will actually also show a lot about you and the relationship that you share with the other person. Eye contact. Do you realize that eye contact can actually help build bonds? Not the James Bond, and not the bond in the financial terms. Bond is the connect, and it can actually initiate a response. So example, you were passing by and I was passing by, and if I keep looking at you in your eyes, what will happen? It might trigger a response. You might wonder, why is he looking at me? Or have we met before? Or you might actually come and ask me, hi, do I know you? So you see that can happen. So eye contact is very important. Next is handshake. We should know that handshake obviously is firm, 2-3 pumps, web to web, right? And good firm handshake obviously is a sign of confidence. That is also proper business etiquette. Voice. Now, like I said, words may fail us, but if you can actually understand the non-verbal and the paralanguage, which is the way something is said, what's going to happen? We will learn a lot about the communication of that person. Example, if you were to watch a movie, let's say which is not of your language. Let's say you're watching a movie which is German. Let's say you're watching a movie of World War II or World War I. Now what's going to happen? You can obviously you can look at that movie, and with the tone of your voice you can judge if that person is angry, if that person is in love, if that person is feeling excited, just with the voice, just with paralanguage, with the tone and the speed of the voice and the pitch, right? So that's why tone also plays a very important role. Facial expressions, I read this interesting thing somewhere that your face can express 21 different emotions. 21 different emotions? God. Appearances, yes, how you dressed, the artifacts that you carry actually conveys a lot about you and your background and about your profile and what kind of work you may be doing. And lastly, gestures. So gestures. These are the gestures that actually replace words, and a lot of gestures are internationally and a lot of gestures are universal. So when I say this in most part of the world, it means victory, right? When I say this in most part of the world, it means bye bye. Okay, good. Now let's understand noise. What's noise? Let me give you the definition. Anything that distorts the message so that what is received is different from what is intended by the speaker. That's what a noise is. So example, if I'm speaking to you over a phone and you are in an area where there is no great network coverage, now what I will say you might not understand everything, then in that case the message is distorted, and that is what is called a noise. Alright, so the noise is the use of complicated jargons. Jargons are industry specific words. Inappropriate body language, you're looking there and they're talking to you, you're doing something, they're talking to you, that's wrong. Inattention, not giving attention, disinterest, and cultural differences. Now these are the things which can cause a noise and which can hamper the communication process. Feedback. Feedback consists of messages the receiver returns, which allows the sender to know how accurately the message has been received. So if I'm saying something to you and looking at your facial expressions, I will understand that you're liking what I'm saying or you're not liking what I'm saying, if you're understanding what I'm saying or if you're not understanding what I'm saying. Do you understand what I'm saying? Good. So so that's a feedback. Now it could be verbal, it could be non-verbal, both. Feedback allows the sender to regulate, adapt or repeat the message in order to improve communication. So if I've said something and if you haven't understood it and I can see it from your face, then I will obviously repeat or adapt or regulate my communication process so that you understand it properly. Channel. Now what's a channel? The physical means by which the message is transferred from one person to another. It could be what? It could be let's say internet, or it could be this video camera through which I am sharing my thoughts and through which actually the communication process is happening. Now let's look at this illustration. It's a very basic illustration which shows the source uses a channel there, and then through channel the message reaches the audience, which is the receivers, and then receivers actually give a feedback to the sender, communicator. A quick recap. Communicators. Communicators are people who communicate, and communication can be a one-way process, it could be a two-way process. One-way lacks feedback, two-way is essentially an interactive process. Message could be a speech, which is verbal, or it could be written, again verbal, or it could be non-verbal, such as facial expressions, tone of the voice, gestures, and body language. So noises could be complicated jargons, inappropriate body language, inattention. So noises could be complicated jargons, inappropriate body language, inattention, disinterest, cultural differences. Now cultural differences could be, let me just give you an example. In the Western cultures, it is absolutely important to look in the eye and say, if you don't, they think that you're lying. But in our culture, in India, if you look at your elders in the eye when they are scolding you, and then they will not like it, that's a sign of disrespect, right? So there could be a cultural barrier that way. Next is feedback. Feedback is the message that the receiver gives the sender, confirming that they've understood or confirming that they've not understood what the message was given to them. And it could be direct verbal statements, it could be facial expressions, or change in the posture. Lastly, channel. Channel could be speech and vision, or only speech. So we've got this source, which is the sender of the message, and he has obviously a message, he or she has a message to deliver, and then he encodes it in a way that it is understood by the audience. So in this let's say video, I am encoding my message in a language called English, because we both understand that language, and then I encode that message in this language, and then I using this channel to communicate to you, and then you receive that message, and then you decode that message based on your understanding and your knowledge and your experience. You will understand, try and make sense of what I'm saying, and then you as a receiver will give a feedback to the sender saying, hey, I've understood what you're saying. Alright, communication barriers. Now, barriers can exist in any of the three components of communication, which is verbal, paraverbal, and non-verbal. Let's look at them. Verbal. Verbal barrier can happen if you're actually attacking someone, like not like attacking that way, but then you can also attack verbally. You can speak in a very interrogative tone, or you can criticize someone, or you can blame someone, and you can put someone to shame. Now, if you do that, that's also called attacking, and people will not like it, and then it will be a barrier. Example, you say things like, have you done the task that I gave you, or have you taken mom to the doctor? So you don't do this, and you always do this. Now, when you do that, people don't like it. Showing power, ordering, threatening, commanding, directing. So things like, you don't do this and I will fire you. You don't do this and I will make sure that you get punishment. Anything, right? So these are the things that show power, and these are the ways in which you attack people verbally, which is not right. So that can be a barrier in communication. Non-verbal barrier cues. These are the ones that are given on your screen. So example, flashing your eyes, like flashing or flashing or rolling your eyes when you're not interested, and it shows. Quick or slow movements, if your movements are too quick, too slow, barrier. And if you cross your arms or your legs, that again, people perceive it differently, and it is not a good sign that you can exhibit. Gestures made with exasperation, like frustration. You're tightening your jaws with frustration, or you're closing your fists, and that's like a wrong way to express yourself. Slouching, hunching, over or poor personal care. Now these again are barriers which are non-verbal. And then staring at people for a long time, or avoiding eye contact. Both of these things are not right. So you don't have to stare at people, keep looking at them. So just because somebody told you that you need to maintain eye contact doesn't mean that you do it without blinking. That's not right. Or probably you're avoiding eye contact. Now if you're avoiding, again, that for whatever reasons, that doesn't communicate well about you. And in the end, doodling or excessive fidgeting, that also conveys a lot about you, and the person may not like it because the person may think that you're bored when they're talking. So we must avoid these things. It's a trap. Don't get into this trap. Now there could be other general barriers like cultural barriers, and there could be perceptual barriers and language barriers. Now language is very simple. Cultural barriers are in one culture one thing may be okay, but in other culture that thing may not be okay. Like in some culture it is very much okay, even business relationships, to stand very close, like within 2 feet. Okay, cultural barrier could be like in one culture it is okay to do something, in other it may not be okay to do that. So example, in some cultures, even in business environment, people stand very close, actually in the personal zone. So example, they'll stand 2 feet closer to you, which in our culture we don't really get comfortable doing that, right? And perceptual barrier is basically when, according to your perception, something may be right, but somebody else may have another perception about that thing, and you two have different perceptions about the same thing. That's where things can go wrong.